You're listening to the main event with Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. on WHIP.
Welcome back, everybody. 11:20 here on a Monday morning. Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here with you, taking you up until noon Eastern time, where the Temple Sports Hour will come your way. Chase, I am not the biggest of boxing fans in the world, but I do follow the sport. When I was growing up, I loved watching Yuri Foreman fight. Obviously, Mike Tyson, him running his mouth was always some great stuff. But in the last 5 years, I really wanted to see Mayweather and Pacquiao. And with all the drug testing BS, it wasn't going to happen. And then over the weekend, I see on my Twitter a big announcement. Mayweather-Pacquiao, it's finally going to happen May 2nd at Vegas MGM Grand. And we're going to go out to the HBO freelancer. He is our resident boxing expert, also a good friend of ours from the producer of the Sid Rosenberg Show. And that is Steve Zemach, who joins us right now. Steve, it's Zach and Chase here in Philly. Thanks for a few minutes. How is that Florida sun down there?
Hey, Zach. Hey, Chase. How you doing?
Well, we're doing great. We appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time today. So I know that you are one of these boxing nuts, and you actually absolutely love the sport. You work for HBO as a freelancer. You and Sid, you always go down to Vegas for the big fights. It must have been like Christmas morning or a Hanukkah night for you when this fight was announced. Where was the level of jubilance at for one Steve Zemach when you saw on Twitter and from all your boxing sources that Mayweather and Pacquiao, after this long wait, was finally going to happen?
Yeah, that's safe to say. It was probably felt like the night before Hanukkah, man. It was something special and that I didn't really initially believe when I first read it. You know, it had to sink in because it's been 6 years in the making. So it had to sink in for a little bit. But it's happening. May 2nd. It's happening.
Well, yes, it finally is. So we all know the drug testing is why this thing took so long. Why did it finally get right this time? Why are we finally going to have this fight?
Well, I think we go back about 5-6 years ago, Pacquiao could sell 1 million, 1.5 million pay-per-views alone by himself. Floyd, same thing, close to 2 million. Now they're getting to the point where they didn't even release Floyd's pay-per-view numbers last year, which means they must not have been high. Showtime kept them under the rug, didn't let anyone know what they were. So I think they're at the point now where both of these guys need each other, not to mention they're going to be both looking at basically 9-figure salaries. So with that said, the fact that they're not bringing in what they were bringing in 4 or 5 years ago, and we were talking maybe $60 million for Floyd and Manny 5 years ago. Now we're talking $120 million, $150 million. So I think money obviously a big factor, but also the fact that there's really no one left for either of these guys to fight.
I'm a big Pacquiao guy. I want to see Pacquiao beat the snot out of Mayweather because I thought the delay of this fight was mostly on Mayweather. And obviously you would know better than me with the whole drug testing stuff. Down deep, I know Floyd Mayweather would never admit this, but do you think he was a little bit hesitant or scared to fight Pacquiao a few years ago? Or was it really him stuck on this drug testing BS, in my opinion?
No, I think you're right with the first point. I think he was, not that he was scared, but I don't think he wanted to take the test to fight Manny. He had a lot of, he had some easier fights, or like I said, he still guaranteed 30, 35 million and keep his record with the 0. So I think he went that route. And there was even a point right after the De La Hoya fight where Bob Arum, who runs Top Rank, was his promoter at the time, was putting guys like Miguel Cotto, Antonio Margarito, guys in their prime in front of him. And Floyd kind of walked away for 2 years. If you remember, he was doing like WWE. He was doing a bunch of other stuff on the side, wasn't really taking it seriously. Then he came back in 2011, and Victor Ortiz and Juan Manuel Marquez, and he kind of chipped away until there was nobody else left. So I will put the blame on Floyd for this fight not getting made until now. I think there's a little bit on both, but the majority on Floyd. I think the drug testing was not exactly the reason the fight didn't happen. Maybe one of the 10 reasons that Floyd had, but there was other reasons behind it.
Steve Zemach is our guest here on the main event, WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia, broadcasting to you live on the campus at Temple University. Steve, it's Chase. How much does boxing as a sport need this fight to happen?
Yeah, they need it. They needed before to retire that needed to happen. I know a lot of people, I'm seeing a lot lately, too late. It should have been in their prime. Hagler and Leonard took 6 years to make. Nobody really looks back and remembers that Leonard Hagler took 6 years to make. They just remember how the fight turned out, the controversy, everything that's surrounding it. So I think both of their legacies, they needed to cement their legacy and get in the ring with each other for this, for really, not even, it's bringing boxing to a different level. It led off Sports Center all weekend. It was everywhere, like you said. But it also, for Floyd and Manny, they needed this fight themselves. So boxing needs it as well, but I think they even needed it a little bit more than boxing did. Because boxing has its niche, its fans that are going to watch it no matter what, like me. I'm going to watch Floyd. Floyd was fighting someone else on May 2nd. I would have watched it. But I guess their legacy, when they retire at the end of the day and you look down their record, you'll see that the two best fighters of our era, they fought each other. Now, your question, it's also big for boxing. Now, the problem here is it's only 10 weeks for the fight. Not that it needs promotion, but it would have been nice if this was brewing for, say, 3 months like a normal fight would have happened. But all the problems, everything in between, they really got this fight done at the last possible, week. 10 weeks before the fight, that's cutting it really, really close. So for boxing, it would have been nice to generate, 3-4 months of interest, but it'll take the 10 weeks. And now I think how the fight turns out will establish, where boxing goes from there. Was it a great fight? Did we see a rematch? Were people bored with it? There's going to be a lot of questions. It's not going to be a slug-it-out, Hagler-Hearns, brawl. This is going to be your prototypical boxing fight, offensive fighter in Manny Pacquiao against a defensive fighter in Floyd Mayweather. Who's better?
Floyd Mayweather is one of the greatest fighters all time, the best in his weight class. He's 47-0, 26 wins by KO. If he were to lose this fight, Steve, what would that do to his legacy?
If he were to lose this fight, it would really dent his legacy. I would say right now he's probably on the cusp of maybe the top 20 fighters of all time. I wouldn't put him up there above the 20. People are comparing him to Sugar Ray Robinson, top 5, not a chance. I think top 20, if he loses, could be looking somewhere in closer to the 40s and 50s, and it will really, really put a huge hole in his. Obviously he won't be undefeated anymore, but he won't be. Because Floyd sticks to the fact that he's undefeated. 47 have tried, 47 have failed, etc. So I feel like you interview Floyd 25 years from now, he's going to tell you, hey, 48 tried, 48 failed, or 51, whatever number it was. If Manny wins this, that argument's over, and he could no longer call himself the greatest of all time, because part of the reason he calls himself the greatest of all time is because he has the 0. So if he beats Manny, I think it takes him to another level, but not much more than where he is now. I think he has more to lose than to actually gain by this fight.
We're talking to Steve Zemach, and Steve, Floyd's resume speaks for itself. It's very impressive what he's been able to do. He's had a couple of fights that were headline matchups, but he hasn't really brawled up against any top-tier fighters. This is the lone one, but because his legacy could be affected if he does lose against Manny Pacquiao, do you think that held him out from making this decision until a couple of days ago?
Yeah, I think he did, absolutely. I think he took a lot of the easier fights knowing he's going to sell $2 million when he fights Canelo and a couple of the easier fights. And it got to the point, I think he believes in his mind he's going to win the fight. But there's a little bit in there saying Manny could win this fight, or at the very least, this is the best fighter I'm fighting in my career. So there might not be doubt in his head, but I think he knows when he steps in and they look face to face, this will be the best fighter he has fought in his career.
If Floyd wins, does he retire again?
He has one more fight under contract with Showtime. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to take the fight, but if he wins, that would be a great way to go out. The problem here is Rocky Marciano, 49-0, holds the record. So does Floyd want that record as well? So he beats Manny, he goes to 48-0. Does he want to tie Rocky Marciano and go to 49-0, retire at the end of his Showtime contract? end the Showtime contract and maybe take one more fight to get 50-0? That's a big question. Big question. It depends on the fight and the outcome.
Obviously, there's a lot of history between Bob Arum and Floyd Mayweather. Arum now works with Pacquiao as his promoter. I'm curious, though, just as someone that covers the sport like you do religiously, as a freelancer for HBO and the producer of the Sid Rosenberg Show, as we're talking to Steve Zemach, describe the level of animosity right now between Arum and also Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, I think you hit it there. The animosity is that from 1 to 10, it's probably 12. Guys dislike each other to the max. Floyd was under Bob Arum's umbrella with Top Rank, and when Bob was trying to beat him in a big fight, it was 2008 when or 2007, Floyd kind of bowed out. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do the WWE wrestling thing and stuff like that. And I think part of that carried over to when these negotiations started in 2010. I think Floyd said, I'm not going to do what Arum wants. I'm going to do what I want. F Arum. And Bob said basically the same thing to Floyd. I'm not going to do what you want. You didn't. I had fighters lined up. There was money in the bank for you and me. And you decided to take the exit route. So the animosity there is big. And I think a big part of the reason why this fight didn't get done is because of the relationship between Bob Arum and Mayweather. And I think going back, and I hate to reference this, but I got to give some credit. Going back to the Heat game, when Floyd and Manny were both courtside, I think it meant a lot when Floyd walked over and said, "I want to fight you," and Manny said the same thing. "I want to fight you." It happened, and it carried over into the lobby of the hotel apparently that night. And I think a lot of credit has to go to that the fighters actually sat down and were talking face to face, because a lot of the times you have the handlers in the room, and it's third party. So I say without Arum being in the middle of this, maybe it's part of the reason why the fight got done, at least for May 2nd. Maybe down the road in November it might have gotten done. But I think as far as May 2nd, the ball really starts rolling within the last 2 weeks.
You got to be careful here, Stephen, what you say, just because Sid Rosenberg hates the Miami Heat. And if you give credit to the Miami Heat, you may lose your job with that show.
You're 100% right. Don't send him that clip, please. You are right about that.
Real quickly, before we let you run, Steve, though, I want to ask you, because boxing, for some reason, with my generation, just doesn't have that appeal. Like, I'll watch a fight, but my dad growing up wouldn't let me pay $60, $70 to get the fight. If you had to get up in front of a committee and say, this is why you should watch boxing, and this is why we need to get it big again for the younger generation, what would your pitch be?
Personally, I think the drama in boxing cannot be matched. Maybe at the level of maybe Joe Flacco's Hail Mary pass in Denver a couple years ago, taking the Ravens to the Super Bowl. I think that's the only comparison I can make as far as level of drama when a punch lands and a fighter starts, getting, wiggly legs or gets completely knocked out cold. I mean, I was there when Pacquiao got knocked out cold from Marquez, and the guy next to me from Grantland.com basically said, "I'm about to throw up." I mean, that's the emotion that he felt in the arena. So, as far as, I always go with that, and then I would say boxing is like chess. It's a chess match with the human body. So you have to have or enjoy a certain style of sport. And I think it's more like I think you're born with that mentality. Either you like boxing or you don't. I don't think you can really teach someone and sit them down and say, "Hey, this is why you like boxing. Watch 25 fights, and then you're going to be a diehard fan." I think it's kind of in your blood if you're a boxing fan or not.
Last one here with Steve Zemach, freelancer for HBO, going to be at MGM Grand for the big fight between Mayweather and Pacquiao. We've been talking about it for almost over 5 years, and it's finally going to happen on May 2nd. Tremendous venue, obviously. The only place it could be at Vegas MGM Grand. So let me take a look into your crystal ball. Obviously, I want to see Pacquiao go out there and kick the butt out of that jackass in Floyd Mayweather. How do you think this fight will go? I would have to assume most people are going to pick Mayweather, as he's going to be the hot take in this with that undefeated record.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel like you. They want to see Floyd lose. I'd say right now, I'm looking at just the media is probably saying 70% are going with Floyd, 30% Manny. I personally right now would say Floyd. Floyd would have the upper hand.
All right, Steve. Well, actually, I'll be in Florida next week, so let's meet up, and we appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again real soon. This is a great job by you, my friend.
Thanks, man. Absolutely. Anytime, and I look forward to seeing you in Florida. Take care, guys.
There's
Thanks.
Steve Zemach from HBO, freelancer, and from the Sid Rosenberg show of 640 Sports. I can't wait for this fight. I'll tell you right now, I told my friends the minute when we saw the announcement, I don't buy many boxing fights. That's because my dad wouldn't necessarily let me when I was a kid. But now I'm in college.
Also didn't have the money.
We're going to get a bunch of people together and get this fight because it's going to be the real deal, and I cannot wait for it. And it's been something I wanted to been seeing for a long time.